So Jason, you follow Latino politics in the United States very closely. Could you tell us about how Mitt Romney did with Latinos in Florida and how he won so decisively?
Yeah, well, Mitt Romney did quite well. He won 54% of the Latino vote, which is much better than he did 4 years ago against John McCain. And I think he won not because of his position on immigration, but despite his position on immigration. We got to remember that with Latinos, we're not looking at a monolithic community, that we have Cuban Americans and Puerto Ricans that make up the largest proportion of Latinos in the state of Florida. And 15% of the electorate yesterday in the Republican primary was Latino. And we're not going to see those kind of numbers again in any other Republican primary. So we see Nevada coming up and other states coming up. We won't see that kind of large proportion of Latino voters. And so I think we need to be careful because Cuban Americans and Puerto Ricans aren't as affected by immigration policy. And so while that issue is certainly important to Latinos overall, it's not as important to those groups as it is in other states. And so I think that's one of the challenges I think that Mitt Romney is going to have to face as he moves forward in terms of appealing to the larger Latino community.
So what role will the Latino community play moving forward in the GOP primary, given that their numbers are relatively small among the GOP primary electorate?
Well, I mean, it's certainly if Newt Gingrich, his 46 states and counting kind of campaign, if he intends to move forward, a lot of these southern states, I think there's going to be a sort of an effort to try to talk tough on immigration. Certainly Newt Gingrich has been a candidate where he's actually tried to have a more humane immigration policy. He seems not to have benefited in Florida because of that. I think, as I said before, that's largely because that's not a large issue with the Hispanics in that state. But I think moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how that campaign and how that fight between Romney and Gingrich will intensify and possibly alienate Latino voters in the general election.
Right, and this is part of a kind of longer-term conversation that's been going on in the Republican Party about how the party should cope or react to demographic trends in the country, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, we see the growth of the population. Nearly 15% of the population in the U.S. is Latino, and while Obama certainly has won the support, he won 2/3 of the Latino vote 4 years ago. Polls show he's doing just as well with the Latino voters, unlike the population as a whole. And so it'll be interesting to see what steps the Republican nominee, whoever that may be, takes to try to appeal to this growing vote, and whether Latino voters will forget about the campaign up until that point.